We have a special request that we are going to honor right off the bat on InGoal Radio, the podcast. Darren Millard, along with the co-founders of InGoal, David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley. And we have a special request that we have to make sure that we get off our chest right off the bat. And that is from Aiden Shaw. And Aiden emailed us to tell us that received a great InGoal premium subscription from the grandparents and has been a long-time listener of InGoal Radio. And that's not the great part of it, although there's an incredible relationship there that has developed with Aiden. But Aiden's sister is traveling to the Lower Mainland for a hockey tournament, and Aiden is desperate to go along to be able to visit the hockey shop source for sports, Surrey, thehockeyshop.com, and wanted a shout out. So guys, say hello to Aiden.
Hello, Aiden.
Hello,
Aiden's dad. Hello, Aiden's sister. You should all go to the hockey shop. As a matter of fact, if you tell me when you're going to go, maybe I can pop by at the same time and visit you down in the goalie department with Cam. Aiden, you and I can try all the gloves on and leave them on the ground for Cam to put back. I would enjoy that very much. But definitely Aiden's dad, who I only know now as Aiden's dad based on the email, take Aiden and his sister to the hockey shop in person. Because as much as we talk all the time about how great thehockeyshop.com is, and Darren down in Vegas is a regular on the website, and if you can't get there in person, definitely want to check them out online. But in person is the best. That's where you get the attention to detail from Cam and his staff. It's not just a bunch of guys working the weekend at the local sporting store. It is all goalies who are passionate about the position, and they will help you find the gear that fits you best. So absolutely, Aiden, make sure you find time in that tournament to get dad to drag you down to the hockey shop, and your sister, because there'll be something for her too.
So I've been in that situation at a hockey tournament in Vancouver where you're looking at the schedule and you're thinking, okay, I've got 2.5 hours between games. Maybe we can make it over to the hockey shop in time to grab this little thing. Aiden's dad, don't do it that way. It's got to be after the last game of the day, because you've got two problems there. One is there's a lot of gloves for Aiden to try on, so you need time for that. And two, you've all heard Woody talk here, so you're going to have to invest a little bit of time. So those two things mean, Aiden's dad, you need some time.
And just so you know, it's not just goalies that come into town for tournaments, or in this case with Aiden, he's into town with his dad for his sister's tournament. It's professional goalies. I remember Luka Grashnar is still playing overseas. I think he's in the Austrian league, coming to do some work with Alex Auld for the week. And we had to make a special trip one day, and we had to leave the time because after one of the skates in the morning, before one of the skates in the afternoon, we picked a window and drove with Luka out to the hockey shop just to check out all the great things they had in Goalie Utopia. So yeah, like even guys coming from overseas, the hockey shop is famous, and Goalie Utopia is so famous that pro goalies want to go check out all the things they have to offer. And I should mention, right now, it's not quite up at thehockeyshop.com, but it is in store. I saw it on their social media account. Vaughn SLR3 has arrived at the hockey shop. So look for that if you're lucky enough, like Aiden, to get there in person, and look for it online soon as they get it posted onto the website at thehockeyshop.com.
Here's the way we really sell it, Aiden, because it doesn't sound like your sister is a goaltender. It's the hockey shop. It's not just goalies. It's the hockey shop. So let's really sell it to Pops as a way to outfit whatever your sister needs for the tournament, and the whole team can make a trip out there and really dive in to upstairs and downstairs and really get the full experience from the hockey shop. And if you take the whole team, maybe we can pull up some kind of VIP experience where you get extra special attention.
I thought the VIP experience was having Cam put all your gloves back off the wall after you were done. That's how I approach it. There's actually 2 floors. That's the thing. We talk all about the whole dedicated floor to goaltender, but up above us, there's actually 2 more floors for players. There's the main level, and then there's an upper level with pants and some of the extra protectives up there. So your sister will actually have 2 floors. You get 1, and you can share the stick room. Try some new twigs. Both of you can take turns. Have Cam tape a couple sticks up for you and firing pucks at the net. See which one you like best. It's make a day of it, folks. Make a day of it.
That will be awesome. So there you go, Aiden. We've done our part. I hope you enjoy your experience because after this, Pops, there's no way you can say no. We came up with the idea to get Aiden there and make sure that Aiden got the opportunity. You have to follow through on it. So congratulations, Aiden. And thank you for the email. And I hope that you continue to enjoy InGoal Premium and InGoal Radio, the podcast. I'm going to do a slight pivot here because we're on the subject of the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. Let's get to this week's gear segment right now, and then we'll come back because I want to chat about Thatcher Demko's great tribute set to Kirk McLean. Jacob Markstrom had the experience of losing a blade and how he handled that very delicate and challenging predicament. Pekka Rinne's banner-raising ceremony also. So a lot to get to on the goaltending side, but let's get to the gear segment. And Woody, you guys are chatting about some sticks this week and some accessories.
Well, mostly how to protect your sticks. Found a new twig, was going to buy it, and Cam was like, whoa, don't. I was just like, where's the tape? Let's go fire this thing up. Let me get out of here. But he wanted to show me all the different things that I could put on the stick instead of tape. So I never really thought about it. Times have changed. I'm a little bit of an old school traditionalist. Just give me a roll of white tape and send me on my way. But Cam had a few extra options, some of which can protect your hand, some of which actually protect that stick shaft, which we know is an area where sticks often break. So let's have Cam explain to us why tape is not often enough anymore when you buy a stick. We're back at the Hockey Shop, source for sports. We're down in Goalie Utopia with Cam Matwiv. We've got a stick. He's a little edgy right now because he's been throwing accessories at me for the last couple of minutes. And by accessories, I mean I came in to buy a stick, found a good one, wanted to get a little tape. Cam decided tape's not good enough. We got some alternatives. He did manage to chuck the tape at my nether regions. Make sure you watch the video for that if you're listening right now on the podcast. Cam, we've got some options now. It's no longer a matter of just slapping some tape, although you can, grip tape, regular tape, whatever you want to do.
Because we're a stickler for our classics. We always do have them. But hey, there are alternates and extra convenience because that's the day and age that we live in now.
In a world of Velcro straps instead of leather and buckles, there are also ways to get your stick ready to play a lot faster and a lot more consistently. You've got butt ends back in stock. Something you've had for a while, but we're low on. Mm-hmm. We've got I see the inventory is up. What the hell's a butt end, Cam?
So, grip.
Oh, I know what a butt end is. Okay, never mind.
2 minutes in the penalty box there, kid. Just hang tight. Butt ends. Normally, especially up at the top, you want a little bit of that extra grip, especially for playing the puck.
We all know what a goalie knob is, Cam.
Exactly. And also being able to pick up your stick because Kevin drops it all the time. With this right here, A, I don't have to wrap it with 6 tons of tape at the end. B, there's lots of great grip in terms of for playing that puck up top. The actual butt end is built in as well. So again, I'm saving you a bunch of time. I'm having it done already. I've got a supreme grip, easy enough to apply, which we'll show here in a little bit. Slides right on. You're set. You're ready to rock and roll. Again, no more 6 tons of tape, but I know you're old school, so you like your tape. So.
Like Braden Holtby knob, like it gets like this big and he's there for like 5 minutes. We got video of him doing it. You're telling me I just got to slide this thing on and I'm ready to go.
That's it?
Although this black one would be illegal in the National Hockey League. But you have white. You have other colors.
We do have other colors. Amazing. We have variety.
Okay. So that's the butt ends. We're going to put that on and show you guys how to put that on. We got some other things. Now I've noticed recently, I noticed Henrik Lundqvist had one, his last visit here before he retired. Finger protection that wraps around the stick. You've got 2 different options now. You've got the paddle wedge, which is what I saw with Henrik Lundqvist. And that sits down to protect, those shots that ride up the stick and catch you on the finger. It's there to protect it. You've got that one in multiple colors as well. Some green, some orange, some nice bright colors if people don't want white. But then we've also got goalie block, which was kind of the original on this. I've seen Michael DiPietro use this in practice a lot. Chris Dreger was here with the Seattle Kraken this week. He had goalie block on his stick. As a matter of fact, I think I saw the trainer actually cut one off and put a new one on. So that was an example of where a shot got up there and maybe damaged the goalie block rather than Chris Dreger's fingers. I think of Sergei Bobrovsky. We've seen him using that on the regular. So the difference between the 2 brands, the difference between the 2 options, which do you prefer? It's good that you've got both. How hard are they to put on? Walk me through these things.
Now, quick note. Yeah, hotly debated talk of who came up with it first. I mean, hey, they're both here, so as far as I'm concerned, they both came at the same time. Which one's easier to put on? I'd say they're about the same. It really kind of depends on where you want it to sit a little bit more. The wedge is a little bit more tapered down, especially up at the front. Like you're getting a little bit more of that deflection out, whereas the block is just straight, that block stop. Depends kind of how you like it to rest your finger on it too as well. I think for today's argument sense, we'll say that you pick block, slide on, down the shaft, position it to where you would want it, ideally, again, where your index finger is kind of lining up on that stick, and that's giving you, again, that puck ride-up protection. Stop those shots, broken fingers, stuff like that. We're not going to have that problem.
So I'm kind of a pretty boy, as you may have noticed. So you got it in black to match my nice black stick?
I do have it in black if you want black. I mean, it's up to you. It's personal preference.
Okay, other options. So this is protective.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question for you, because the guys like to make fun of me for having a practice or a warm-up stick. Come off and on easy, or are you putting it on and keeping it on until that stick is dead?
Now, again, this kind of depends on you. I would say it's once it's on kind of thing. You can peel them off. It's just that if it starts to peel and then you get a crack in it and you kind of wreck it sort of thing, going on and off, it's kind of a waste in that sense. So maybe it is your practice stick. Maybe it is your warm-up stick. Maybe it is your game stick too as well. I mean, this product is approved to be used in an NHL game if they really wanted to.
Ooh, a little scoop from Cam. I didn't know I told you that one. It's a conversation I've had with a couple of goalies. Kay Whitmore told us that he actually has approved this for use, but I haven't seen a lot of guys use it.
You told me, or I just knew that because it's me.
Galaxy brain over here. What else we got, Cam? Oh, yeah.
One more product from you, from the makers of Paddle Wedge themselves, your Twig Saver. So this one's a neat one.
I like my Twig, so Twig Saver is a good idea.
Now, I would strictly call this one more of a practice thing than I personally wouldn't use this in a game. However, I do see the value in this in terms of your practice stick. You get a lot of those shots off the higher shaft of that stick, and that's a lot of the times where we see some of these composite sticks break because that's a continuous shot. Once you start to have that spider cracking, you go to lean into it and you're cracking right through. This is like a cell phone case for your stick, put it that way.
A cell phone, nice. Look at you, marketing.
So,
somebody should give you a job.
Help. Goes on, you would tape it down with just regular hockey tape or even clear tape if you wanted to. So again, this is something more geared towards that practice for sure. However, again, in that position, you figure out that spot where you do constantly get that, shot off that shaft, tape her down, set her up. Again, we're creating that extra protection. It's going to increase that lifetime out of your stick.
And of course, you do sell tape here as well, right? We've got a little old school traditional stuff.
Yes.
For those of you that still like tape. Still got to tape the blade.
I mean, you got to do something. I mean, hey, we do got blade covers if you want to use those too.
It's stick accessory day, Cam. I think you should show me those.
One more accessory for today. We do have blade tape as well. If you really don't want to tape your stick.
I'm lazy.
I mean, hey, this is as convenient, not lazy, as it would probably potentially get. Me personally, I do like a little bit of tape around my heel and all the way through. However, just in case you don't want to do that, you got blade tape.
So folks, the lesson here is not only can you get the stick you need at the hockey shop, and in my case, on sale, the Warrior V1 line and a bunch of pro returns still on sale on the sale rack here at thehockeyshop.com, but they've got everything to accessorize it well. Make sure you check it out with Cam at the hockey shop in person here or at thehockeyshop.com. Pimp my stick.
604-589-8299, 1-800-567-7790. Please don't pimp your stick. Just accessory.
That's fun. And we do have the YouTube channel and Instagram where people can watch these gear segments. And that's an important part of this week's gear segment, right, Woody?
A very important part. Both, let's just say you were going to want to watch Cam try and put on the butt end of my stick for me. There's lessons there on how to make it easier yourself, as well as a lot of comedy in watching Cam maybe try it a less easy way the first time. Let's put it that way. So make sure you check out the gear segment in all its glory. We call it like a simulcast. We got the podcast version on here, but we do a little extra with the video little intros and a little extra B-roll and footage of. And this week, it's definitely worth the price of admission to watch Cam trying to put that butt end on my stick.
It's almost like the gear segment after hours version.
Yeah,
Just a little bit expand, a little bit behind the curtains.
Well, we like to see Cam sweat, and trust me, he works up a sweat in this one.
And he won't be the only person that's ever tried to do that in that fashion. And then you see the real ease at which when you kind of follow the instructions.
Yeah, the instructions and what doesn't go mentioned on the podcast is part of that you'll get that will throw you now as a little tidbit. If you're having a little difficulty, because sometimes stores put the price tag up there so you can get a little bit of that sticky tape residue, which makes the butt end getting it on a little bit harder than it should be. Soap and water, and you're done like that.
And maybe if one of you are a young goaltender getting a butt end as a gift, maybe get mom to help you put it on and not dad, because moms read directions and dads don't read directions. So
no, we'll make this work. I don't need those stinking instructions.
Just push harder.
Hey guys, I think that segment was really important. I think you could gloss over that and think, oh, it's just a few little things for your stick and not as exciting as a big gear segment where we're introducing a new line. But moms and dads out there, I think that's a really important segment to listen to. And I'm going to give you two reasons. One is the goalie block, the paddle wedge should almost be mandatory for kids, at least in practice. It's such a simple, cheap way of making sure your kid doesn't break a finger when a puck rides up the stick. I think everybody should have those on their sticks. It's almost not quite as important as Darren's dangler, but pretty close to it. And then being able to protect the shaft of your stick. I mean, come on, guys. We've all been through that situation where you make that glorious pre-planned shaft save and bang, it's a $300 save or a $350 save. That's about the only spot. I mean, it's not the only spot, but it's the most common spot, at least that I see, sticks breaking. And now you've got a pretty cheap and affordable way to make sure those sticks make it through practice. And Woody loves things just for practice and just for warm up. I want to see Woody at his next beer league game peeling off the shaft protector at the end of the warm up. Got to get him, guys.
Called the twig cover.
The twig
$24.99. And it's funny because I think, Cam probably undersold it a little bit there on the in the video and when we were just talking about it. You're right, Hutch, especially for parents, especially with the price. I mean, look at me. My warm-up stick has got to have a twig protector on it. But if you think about it for practices, honestly, like you may not like the idea of having to tape on this piece of plastic on the shaft of your stick, and it doesn't look pretty, and the companies do a really good job making the graphics on the stick pop and everything. Yeah, you're covering that up for a bit. But at the very least for practice, you're seriously not going to protect your $300 and in some cases now $400 stick and risk having, Buddy tee one up in a range in practice and break that shaft and you're done? It's kind of a no-brainer to me, frankly. And like I said, for the cost of $24.99, yeah, you gotta tape it on. It doesn't clip on. You got to put a little bit of tape around each side of the edge, but it also means it comes off and you can transfer it from stick to stick. Whereas I think goalie block and paddle wedge are a little more difficult to get off. From one stick to the next. This is super easy and you can transfer it from one stick to the other. You can even use it on the stick you're going to use in games and practice, and then if you don't want it on there for games, take it off.
So I get to skate with the big club every now and then. The last 3 sticks that I've broken have all been on the shaft. And that's just, I would use it. I flat out, I didn't know it existed. The product existed until that gear segment. And it makes so much sense that it's a no-brainer. And if you're a junior team and you're running through, I would make it mandatory for practice for my goalies. Just saves. I know. Nobody wants to be told what to do, and et cetera. But I'm a dad. And I instantly become frugal. And it just makes so much sense because that's where you break your sticks. With the torque, the way that we're leaning on sticks, goalies playing the puck, it doesn't take much of a chip in that shaft to compromise the integrity of the stick.
Hey, it's a little bit like you go to the computer store and you buy your new printer and they come up to you at the end and they're like, would you like the extended warranty on this? Mm-hmm. That's usually a really dumb deal because for the most part, they're not going to break. This is an extended warranty you should be investing in because you're spending a small amount of money to protect a very expensive piece of equipment. It's an important piece of equipment. So I don't know how many you guys go through, but I'm sure I've bought at least a dozen sticks this year. So do the math on that. That gets really expensive. And that was before I knew of this product. So I'm with Darren. I thought I'd heard something about it, but until this gear segment, I didn't know it existed and didn't know the hockey shop had it. And I've been in there a bunch of times. I think every time Cam sells a stick, he should be asking if people want to get one of these with it.
You know what we should do? Put InGoal radio podcast stickers on the shaft protector.
Then they'd sell for sure.
And just flying. They probably wouldn't even. People wouldn't even put them on their sticks. They just say
Woody
them.
could autograph them when he's
shelf.
in the shop. Just go through all the bags. And sign them.
Exactly. When he's doing his appearance with Aiden.
Warm up stick, InGoal Radio Podcast, signed by Kevin Woodley. There you go. We're done.
We've got the paddle wedge, the goalie block, the shaft protector, the butt ends, blade tape. So much going on in that segment. I love it. And there's just an awesome amount of ways that you can make your dollar, your investment, go a little bit further at the Hockey Shop, source for sports, thehockeyshop.com.
One product we didn't talk about that they have online is, and what I found interesting about the butt ends is there's a tackiness to it that I actually kind of like when you're grabbing it that you don't really get out of stick tape. Like there's a little bit of grip to it on the butt ends, and some goalies aren't going to like it. Some goalies are. But if you don't like the idea of butt ends, or they don't have, because they've got different options in terms of the style of grip, but you don't like the style, you have a custom grip you want to do, the Hockey Shop actually sells lizard skin camouflaged hockey grip tape. So you can actually use their grip tape at the end of your stick on to create a knob that gives you some of that texture that you might not get from regular tape or even grip tape. It's got a little more tackiness to it. So just one of those little side things that I hadn't thought about with a butt end that I sort of realized as soon as I started trying it and using it. You do have a little bit of extra grip up there that I kind of like. So if you don't like the butt end, but you want that extra grip, take a look at the lizard skin hockey grip tape that they have at thehockeyshop.com. You'll find all these things under goalie hockey stick accessories on the website. Make sure you check them out today.
We'll link that in the show notes, of course, too.
Absolutely. I saw the lizard skin tape when I was searching for the lizard skin gloves that we talked about recently when I did the search on the site the other day. So very, very cool. It all comes together. What size of just on the lizard skin gloves? Hutch, you've got the tiny hands. What size would you be? Small? And because I'm trying to figure out if you order them online, what size I would take, and I sort of base it off Hutch.
I don't know. I use a small golf glove,
they have a
so
tiny?
maybe that tells you something.
Oh, so you're just going to go off a golf club? That makes sense.
And as they made the point when they were doing the bit about them, they made the point that you want them to fit a little bit tighter than usual. So maybe you should even order the Hutch size and see how that goes. I don't know. You guys tease me about my little tiny hands, but my kid borrowed one of my blockers the other day for some reason for practice, and it had the intermediate palm in it. And he said next time he orders a glove, he's getting an intermediate palm, and he's got man-sized hands. He actually wanted to pull a Woody. He wanted to pull a Woody and have a blocker on the bench just for the last 2 minutes because he figures he can shoot better with the intermediate palm on the blocker. And
really,
the score.
You know what's interesting about that is we've seen the companies sort of not downsize the sizing. Like the feel that he's experiencing in that tighter grip in an intermediate palm is kind of, we've seen the companies take material out of their blocker palm and sort of trim them down and have less material in them to try and, without making it smaller, because obviously finger length becomes an issue at some point for some people too, especially these like big goalies, but to get rid of that extra material because that bunching created less feel than what he would experience in an intermediate glove. So we're seeing companies try and create that same effect he experienced in their regular size blockers as well.
Yeah. So Woody, when you're in the hockey shop next time, maybe when you and Aiden are hanging out there, don't just pull the gloves off the wall and try them on, because a blocker is not just a blocker. Pull the blockers down, put an intermediate palm on, go into the stick room, and you let me know how it goes.
Well, the problem is Cam doesn't let me, because as much as he hates cleaning up after I've grabbed all the gloves, he hates it even more when I grab the blockers because he knows I have a little tendency to start throwing punches at him. I just like to test things, so.
Well, okay, maybe an intermediate palm is better for that too, Woody.
I'll try.
A question on this subject, and we're going down a rabbit hole.
As we
Blockers, they used to have this strap to tighten them. But I never used it, so I haven't even looked on my access whether it's there. I've never noticed it. Does anybody really use the tightening the strap on a blocker?
I actually find for many of them, I found that just the regular non-strapped wrist is a little too tight for me as well, and that's my little hands. So I'd like to see them loosen up even more.
I constantly just loosen it. I believe it is there still on the axis, Darren. I just loosen it to the loosest spot.
And then it just stays like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've never really thought of using it, and now I don't even notice it anymore. Let's get to some news. Congratulations to the Hamburglar, back in the National Hockey League, and working on those career numbers that are already spectacular, and he's bumping them up, Woody.
Yeah, opportunity, right? 4 years between starts for Andrew Hammond. And he's 2-0 with the Montreal Canadiens already, .949 save percentage in those two games. But even more special, he gets to make that second start back in Ottawa where everything sort of, the legend of the Hamburglar started. And he was really good in that game. So just nice to see him, JF Berube too. Both guys finally get an opportunity after 4 years out of the league. And both guys playing really well early on. We're up to 109 goalies on the season. And I got to think in the case of a couple, not all, but a couple of them, including maybe these two, opening some eyes of teams that maybe saw them as fours and, might give them an opportunity to be a 3 next season. Or, like I said, there's some guys around the league that have played well enough in unexpected opportunities that maybe they get a chance to earn a backup spot next year. So good on both of these guys for after such a long time between appearances in the NHL for showing they can still play at a high level in this league.
It belies logic why he went 4 years between National Hockey League starts, doesn't it, Hutch?
Really does. One of the things that drives me crazy about the sport, although I don't know that I could do it any better, is just the way that people end up getting pigeonholed and they get seen as a prospect or not a prospect, too young, too old. We put people, American League goalie and NHL goalie. Well, his ceiling is this, his ceiling is that. And I'm great. I'm so happy that these guys are opening some eyes and getting people to think about that. And I just encourage coaches, general managers to do that at all levels. You're 15 and you're a prospect to go to a high level team. A 16-year-old could play just as well, and he's too old, so he's not going to be a junior goalie, or he's going to have a junior B ceiling or something. And again, you're an Andrew Hammond and you hit a certain age, and I think they decide that you've hit the ceiling because you don't have any time to get there. Like, hey, Johnny Bauer, boys, when did he come into the league? I think we got to be open to guys of all ages and people having room to grow and room to improve. And the game changes around them all the time. So does that mean the same guy is still suited? I just think opportunity. What a season it has been for that at all levels. Because don't forget, every time these guys bump up to the National Hockey League, there's a knock-on effect all the way through the minors and even into junior hockey often. It's just so exciting to see all the opportunities that are being given. And I hope that teams find a way to give a few more opportunities in the future when things settle down a little bit.
And it kind of speaks a little bit to, like, sometimes guys in the AHL, like we've talked about this before, when it comes to reading the game, there are elements of the National Hockey League that are easier for a goaltender. And some guys thrive in the NHL because they're so good at reading the game. And in the NHL, guys are where they're supposed to be and for the most part do what they're supposed to do, whereas the AHL can be more of a scramble. And so you'll see these guys that have more success in the National Hockey League than they do in the American Hockey League. I mean, to an extent. But the thing about Hammond in particular, like, his numbers have never been bad anywhere he's gone. And that's the part that sort of leaves me scratching my head at times. Like, basically, he had those 2 great years in Ottawa. He did not play well, or did not have good results, I should say, when he was in the American League with Ottawa in Binghamton. But I'm not sure they were, like, that may have just been the team he was behind, right? Like, product of the environment. But ever since then, whether it's, he gets into one game with Colorado in 17-18, stops 31-33, right? And then he goes
in the playoff, in the bubble, right?
That's
Or
a
was that
regular
the regular
season game, but I
Okay.
think he also got into the playoffs and had a win there as well. Like, so, like, these guys just, like, I'm with you, Hutch. Like, it just feels like, especially in Hammond's case, it leaves me scratching my head. And sometimes they do it to themselves. They sign a contract in an organization where an opportunity doesn't present itself. And it wouldn't have in Minnesota this year either, right? Cam Talbot and Kakinen are both playing, Capo Kakinen are both playing really well. But he gets traded to Montreal and he gets his chance and he's making the most of it again. So good for him.
But, I think from an organizational perspective, maybe look at some of these things as an opportunity. We've had those situations where the young prospect who's playing in the American League comes up and plays some games instead of the backup because they want to develop them a little bit more. But maybe you use that thinking and expand it a little bit and give a few other people opportunities here and there. And I know that's tough because it's a league where you have to win and everything is judged on wins. But if somebody does well, if you find some lightning in a bottle there, now all of a sudden, even if there isn't space, for example, on that Minnesota roster for Andrew Hammond, now you've got a prospect or now you've got an asset that can actually turn into something for your team. So I think look at these as opportunities to develop goaltenders and develop assets for your organization. Easy to talk about, not necessarily easy to do, but let's give it a try.
Nashville turned an 8th round pick into the first banner to be raised at Bridgestone Arena. Was that emotional for you, Woody? Because I know that you've really appreciated what Pekka Rinne and the Nashville Predators and that community have bonded with.
Guy chokes up at the end of one interview, and he never gets to live it down. Listen, I definitely had a big smile on my face watching that banner get raised, and you just sort of sensing the connection that and feeling the connection during that ceremony between Pekka and the organization, and frankly, the next day, maybe even more so. Like, think about where the Nashville Predators were as a franchise when he arrived, like 6 years into their existence when they drafted him, a little longer before he arrives, like 8th round pick out of nowhere, has to work for it in the minor leagues to get his opportunity. A franchise that I don't know, I don't have it in front of me how they drew early on, but a franchise that was trying to sort of establish itself in a non-hockey market, to yesterday and an outdoor game with 68, almost 69,000 people in attendance. And the reception that Pekka Rinne got there, dropping the puck and then throwing the catfish, like, to me, that was almost as impressive as much as I enjoyed the ceremony, seeing how much bigger a crowd and how enthusiastic they were when Pekka was introduced. It reminded me of what Saros told me heading into the event, like that he was pretty sure they could have sold out Nissan Stadium with 69,000 people just to watch Pekka's jersey get retired. So it's not just that he built that connection to that community, it's that he helped establish hockey as a part of the sporting fabric of that community, because it really wasn't when he arrived. They were working to get there as an organization, but Pekka was such a massive part of that. And we talked about it last week, both as a player and everything he did and how he did it with that glove, but also as a person and everything he did in the community. And having gotten to know him, and you heard the emotion when the interview we did, like, you can't help but love that guy. And so to see him have a night like that makes you smile too.
Two pieces of great style over the course of the last week in Nashville. One is Pekka Rinne's suit that on his banner retirement night. That thing was sizzling. I'm a blue suit guy. And the other one was David Riddick and the pads. Didn't get to see them, but some pretty good work there. Yeah,
I've been scouring, looking for some photos from sort of the skates and the morning skate, just to try and get it in the full glory of the jersey, because we've seen it in practices. The sort of guitars, like the electric lit up guitars on his CCM set, and just again another example of what we can do with some of the new technologies in terms of screening and printing, and Bauer and CCM sort of leading the way in terms of some pretty flashy designs. And as good as UC was, and I liked his dark blue sort of navy setup. And I like a small goalie, not afraid to wear, dark sets. But that David's set just popped. I loved it. And I loved, if you check out Ritter's Instagram, They had a birth announcement, him and his wife, and CCM sent him a mock-up of mini pads with basically miniature pads with the same design on it. And there's a great photo of him and his wife with the full Riddick wearing the full pads and her holding the little baby pads out in front. It's pretty awesome.
Loved it. On the subject of dark pads, you had to be just reliving the past, Hutch, when you saw Thatcher Demko out there in that Kirk McLean tribute set.
Wasn't it spectacular? I think reliving Woody's past more than ours, because we didn't grow up in the Lower Mainland, but certainly from a distance, loved what we saw in Kirk McLean. That set was absolutely on point. It was an incredible tribute. I think, again, as Woody said, speaks to the digital printing technology we have now, that from not very far away, that looked like the Kirk McLean set in so many ways. And, just whether it's the stitching or remember the extra little bits on the trapper as well. The
yellow piece to protect the bottom of your hand.
Is there a name for it? Just absolutely on point, spectacular set. And don't forget the save that he made, the Kirk McLean save. He's got no stick in his hand and has to make this incredible windmill toe up glove save, which I've never seen Thatcher Demko do that before. Woody, you've seen it a lot more than me. Credit to Canuck Skate on Twitter, who put up the side-by-side pictures of Kirk McLean doing it and Thatcher Demko doing it. That was a really special evening, Woody.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we should run some audio of Thatcher afterwards, because he talked about that, including the fact that he is not a windmill glove save guy. And so let's let people listen to Thatcher Demko, because I think beyond the tribute that he made for Kirk, it wasn't like there was a real thought process. He talked to Kirk in the summer about it, and a real sort of sense of the history of the position and those that came before him that I couldn't help but admire listening to Thatcher talk about it after the game.
I don't think I've ever done that in my life, the windmill stuff. It's never really been my game, so not even in practices or anything, so that was weird. I don't know what came over me. Maybe a little bit of Kirk there.
A little bit of extra love for that glove with the windmill save. Windmill saves, some people just, it's not in their DNA because they're structured. And I love to see, I think that shows the natural ability of Thatcher Demko to freewheel it like that. I enjoyed seeing that, Hutch.
It's absolutely spectacular. I think it's the kind of thing that people try and bust out in practice all the time. Let's go have a little fun. Let's play a little Thatcher Demko, Kirk McLean here. And I actually think it's important. There's that thing about practice. You've got to practice the way you want to play the game. And absolutely, you've got to practice with structure so that you've got those things to go to. But let's have a little athleticism. Everybody likes to talk about how kids need to go play lacrosse, baseball, whatever. And I don't disagree with that. But I think there's also a time in practice to freewheel it a little bit so that when you need to, you can bust it out like Demko did. I jumped out of my seat and yelled when he made that save. Immediately thought of what that meant. So exciting.
Well, and the funny part is it's sort of overshadowed because in a game that ended up 7-1, when it was tight, when it was in doubt, he faced 2 breakaways in the first period, including one where he busted out poke check. So there was a little old school throughout the evening. It wasn't like a flying Devin Dubnyk reaching poke check, but it was on the breakaway, quick little in tight poke to knock the puck away. There was definitely some channeling of old school going on. And it's funny you mentioned that, that have fun moment and that different type of save. We talk about Ian Clark, and we've got a series of drills and progressions online at InGoal magazine right now, ingoalmag.com, featuring Thatcher Demko and Canucks goaltending coach Ian Clark, that actually we're through the first 2 parts. And the third part coming up this week is actually a desperation save where they practice structural elements to it, where they actually take time in practice to identify some keys in a desperate situation that will protect the bottom of the net, will anchor your leg, will give you more extension, like how you position yourself in this moment will free up your hand to reach to the post, to reach different areas. So let's practice it. But also, Ian will be the first one to tell you, and he has in past podcasts with us, that one of the skills he looks for in a goaltender. I think it's part of his seven skills or 7 keys to elite goaltending, is that ability to, in the moment, come up with different things. I'm not phrasing it the same way he does, but to go outside of the box and to be creative in those types of moments and come up with different ways to make saves. Like, that's, even though he'll practice specific ways to make desperation saves, he recognizes as part of a goalie's skill set that ability to get creative. Like Demko making the Scorpion save like 2.5 feet off the ice when he lost his blocker early in the year. Like, you have to have that element if you want to reach that elite status. And we see it shine through in different ways, whether it's the McLean glove or the doing the worm on the ice to elevate his heel for a heel save in the Scorpion. Like, you have to be able to do things differently because the game is not in front of you. As much as we try and be perfect as goaltenders, the game in front of you is never perfect.
Goalie stick tap to Ian Clark for allowing Thatcher Demko to wear that setup, because it kind of violated the rule of a completely dark set for his goaltenders. So that was great, because if you would have went to the outer roll or whatever, it wouldn't have worked. It would have compromised it. So thank you to Ian Clark for doing that. Did you guys find Thatcher Demko looked okay, because he had success in the all dark setup?
I think he looked more than okay. No question to me, he looked thinner. Black is slimming, is what he said on the TV intermission. And
I thought black is supposed to make you look bigger.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, from a distance, it looked like his legs were longer and leaner. I don't think there's any question whatsoever. I would question whether that matters. That's a whole different question. If an NHL shooter thinks that he's got a little extra room there and wants to go for it, then Demmer's going to shut him down. So maybe that's a good thing. It certainly worked well. Don't know that we can claim that the Kirk McLean gear helped the Canucks generate 1980s offense that night, but that's what we saw. I hope they let him do it once more and see what happens this year.
And I should say, like I don't know how fast, and we call it a rule. Maybe it's just a guideline. We do know, and Ian's talked to us in the past, because Thatcher did want to do this tribute a couple of years ago in the 50th anniversary season. I know someone at Brian's told me that was the plan, and he ended up wearing that set with sort of like a black, yellow, and red V in the middle with Vancouver written on the outside of an outer roll. It was still a sharp set, but it was no McLean tribute. And I'm led to believe that that's because the McLean tribute was gonged, I'm assuming by Ian. But some flexibility there, at least for a one-off. And maybe Thatcher earned the right to wear it some more if they happen to bring these jerseys out. But I think it's important, too, to recognize whether you agree with it or disagree with it. Whether you thought Thatcher looked slimmer or not. We've had this discussion with Anders Nilsson. Wore dark gear all year with the Canucks. Watched his own video at the end of the year preparing for the World Championships and was like, man, I look small. I look skinny. And he switched to white for the World Championships, won gold medal at the World Championships, and never looked back. Sometimes it's how you feel, right? Like, look good, feel good, play good. If you think you look small, then you're going to switch. It's not about big or small with Ian Clark. He has shared that with me in the past. It's about defined edges and that split second in a game where we're chasing fractions of a second and fractions of an inch. If there is a split second where the shooter looks up and he can't tell where the goalie ends and the net begins because the edge of the pads are white versus creating a perfect silhouette with the dark edges, then that's an advantage. And if it is an advantage, however small, why wouldn't we have that advantage on our side? That's the philosophy. I'm not saying one way or the other, whether I agree with it. I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but just to give the full background rather than Ian Clark's a meanie who won't let him wear dark gear. There's a real philosophy behind this and one that he clearly believes in. And the dude's had a lot of success.
So will you ask him for us, Woody, if we're going to see Thatcher Demko in the retro goalie flage gear, which takes that to a whole new level? Right? So for those of you who don't know, I apologize. I don't remember the name, but a high school student in the United States on the East Coast actually came up with this concept, worked with Stomp, a goaltending equipment company at the time, to actually stitch netting from a regular hockey net onto the front of a set of white pads and called them goalie flage. And we've since seen it imitated in other forms for that exact reason, that a shooter looks up and they don't know what they're looking at in that split second. So I think it's a really cool option. Darren, you've got a set there. You've tried them. I've tried them. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Darren Stomp came up with something and was able to think up and adapt on the fly. And if you're going down that path, you can sell me on that of the split second looking up shooter, seeing the net, and it made sense. I don't know whether it actually ever worked to that extent, but the mind and the quickness of the game. Yeah, there's something there. You can, as much as Ian Clark can sell me on his ideals, I can be certainly swayed on the goalie flodge. It's unique. Let's just say that, and it was unique.
Well, and we've all seen that Brian's set, right? Like Brian's made a set where the outer rolls were red to sort of match the posts and the crossbar, and the inside of the pad had that crisscross. I like honestly, like we make jokes and everything. First of all, I want Darren the next time he's at, he needs to tend the twine at Vegas Golden Knights practice to break out some goalie flodge and see if he confuses anyone. Second of all, like, wouldn't it be funny if somebody did take it to that extreme and just came out with a set that like would just come out with a all white set that looks like mesh and netting? And see what happens. I want to see it.
And I started this whole conversation by giving Ian Clark a stick tap. Nobody called him a meanie.
That's right. There we go. There are some people in this market that love, in Vancouver here, that love that black jersey, love that black, red, and yellow jersey so much. The downhill skate, and especially in the black. And they want to see it so bad. And the McLean tribute that Thatcher had this week was a big part of that. And they want to see that more too. And so anything that might prevent it from happening, like they get pretty worked up about it, including like
personal.
Yeah, it gets a little like, how can you do this? How can you tell the goalie what to do? I mean, hey man, they're having some pretty good success together this year. Maybe just let them do what they do.
And it was a great night all the way around with a convincing victory over the hottest team in the National Hockey League at the time in the Calgary Flames. The guy at the other end had a bit of an adventure in Jacob Markstrom. Hutch, when you saw what happened with the skate, how do you think that he handled it? And describe what went down for Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we've seen many times, one of those blades popped out at one point during the game. And, I have to say here, as much as we give Woody a hard time for going into the hockey shop and testing all the gloves and throwing them on the ground and making Cam clean them up, every time something cool like that happens, Woody's phone lights up because he's at the game. He's covering it for NHL.com. And I start texting him, did you see that? Did you see that? Here's what happened. Here's how that goal went in. Because I've sat up there with him before, and I know you don't necessarily get the best view. You don't necessarily get all the replays. So eventually Woody responds to me sometimes, and then eventually the phone just goes on silent because he's got a job to do. Cam can't put Woody on silent at the hockey shop, unfortunately. But it's always good fun. So, and I did at that point because I actually thought two things. One is I thought that he handled it absolutely perfectly. And the scenario, of course, allowed him to do that. But having lost the skate blade, Marky went into what we call the double seal, 1 foot on each post, a technique that he uses, that Thatcher Demko uses. I think Ian Clark calls it reverse tracking. But either way, it's that complete sealing of the bottom of the ice, which is very difficult to do, both from a technical and physical standpoint. But it allowed him that ability to move, because instead of that skate without a blade trying to engage the ice, essentially impossible, he was just pushing off the post using it. Brilliant, and ultimately was able to stop the play. However, when they went to the bench, they were unable to replace that blade. Normally, it's just a quick into that Bauer holder, quick change. We can all pop them in fairly easily, and they weren't able to do it. And eventually, the referees had to ask Dan Vladar to come in and take over. I think, and it's only a guess, but I think that actual use of the double seal reverse tracking, pushing that holder up against the post, probably damaged that holder to an extent, and they were unable to get the new blade in there. So, but anyway, an interesting situation and really well handled. But then Dan had a bit of a tough night going in there, didn't he, Woody?
Welcome to the game. The other team's rolling, building's rocking, 100%, finally got full capacity, and you get to come in with 1:48 left and the other team's on a power play. Make the first save, but it leads to a rebound goal, so now you're 1 for 2. Oh, and then with 4.1 seconds left in a scramble after yet another save, mad scramble around the crease, and your defenseman closes his hand on the puck, and the Canucks have got their top players on the ice. So not only is it a penalty shot, but they get to basically pick from the best of the best to take it. And JT Miller comes down and puts on a shootout type move that was absolutely damn near illegal. Like, he almost pulled it back the other way, but continuous motion and all. He got Vladar going one way and came back the other with 4.1 seconds left in the period. And you felt for Vladar in that situation. No warm up, no chance to stretch, no sort of signs he was going to be into the game. And all of a sudden he's in there. Played really well in the third period because they never put Jacob Markstrom back in. But the other guy I felt for in that case was actually Jacob. Because if you know how intense and how much of a competitor he is, and how much, also what a quality person he is, as much as that fire burns, he's still a really good guy too. You know he did not want to put Vladar in that spot. And so just turned what was actually a really tight game, even at 3-0, had been a really good game, into a bit of a blowout.
I love those sweaters because I just see all the different players from the 94 era. When I look at a certain number, I'm like, and I swear I saw Wayne Babbage patrolling the blue line at one point during that game. I went back, looked at the video, and it wasn't there. But for a minute, I thought Wayne Babbage was there. Our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what you guys don't see on the broadcast is they had the intro. So the intro in the building, and it was the Lumberjack, the Johnny Canuck, and it was Kirk McLean with his goal stick instead of an axe in like the full Lumberjack outfit. Jurke Lume and Dave Babbage were the three guys that were a big part of that, wearing the Lumberjack stuff and the old Johnny Canuck, like this retro throwback introduction. I don't know if the Canucks put it online, but if you're a fan of those jerseys and a fan of that era, make sure you check it out because it was pretty cool, especially with Kirk being such a central feature in it.
I have a Jurke Lume game-used stick about 3 feet from me. That's wild that you just brought that name up.
Jurke still is involved with the organization. He's around, like he splits time between Finland and Vancouver, so he's still around. He actually played in the Canucks autism tournament, which I was a part of as well. And one of my guys on the forecheck tried a little too hard and maybe woke him up a little bit. He can still dangle. He can still make you miss out there. He played hard for a couple of minutes and made everybody on the ice look foolish in those few minutes. And then he went back into chill out mode, just patrolling back there. And the high flip, remember the old high flip?
Yeah.
Master of it.
It's a wood Jofa. I don't know. What did you guys say? Jofa or Jofa?
Jofa.
Really?
Yeah.
I did. It's probably wrong, but I said it.
No,
We're from civilization, Darren. You're in the prairies. You didn't have it right.
On the subject of our good friend Jacob Markstrom, let's slide over to our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR. And that is with Jordan Sigalet, the director of goaltending with the Calgary Flames. On the subject of Sense Arena, cracked the top 40, barely. I was 40th in the latest competition that is running right now. The end of this run of challenges to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs as a fan.
Yeah, well, tell us, how did it go, Darren?
I was okay. I'm not going to lie to you. I probably had one of my better sessions. And because I was 40th, I thought, do I even try again? But I'm going to try again to see if I can move up the ranks a little bit.
Excellent. Would love to see you do that. Have you felt that opportunity to work through the competition, each of the different competitions that Sense Arena put together there? Have you noticed something when you hit the ice? Have you noticed the carryover?
Oh, yeah. I find I stand up more. And I'm more patient with the shots. That's one thing that has bled over. I'm far more patient on my feet, on my edges, than I was before.
I think that's a fascinating observation, actually. I mean, so much of what we're writing about over at InGoal, and so many of the guys that we're talking to now, being patient on your edges is such a theme of goaltending right now. To be an outstanding modern goaltender, you have to be patient. And so for you to see that actually carry over, I think is outstanding. What a great reason to try it in and of itself. And for me, a lot of that, of course, is just learning how to read the shot as well. And that opportunity for Sense Arena to help you learn to read the release, to read the shot. I mean, we don't react to these pucks on pure athleticism as much as we love that Thatcher Demko save. So much of it is the ability to read where that shot is going and knowing where it's going pretty much before it leaves the stick. And the opportunity for Sense Arena to help you hone that skill at home without being on the ice, absolutely invaluable, a game changer. I think it should be a part of everybody's warm up, whether that's your at home game day skate because you're not playing major junior or NHL or something like that, where you get a game day skate. You've now got that opportunity to put the Sense Arena on 15, 20 minutes, not a whole lot of time, read some shots, feel some shots, maybe a little bit of overspeed stuff that you're not used to seeing on the ice. And you're going to be ready to step out there when you get there. I haven't yet, because we haven't been in a ton of arenas lately with minor hockey, but I haven't yet seen somebody trying one in the rink before a game. Probably, maybe if we went to see Woody play one of his beer league games, we might see him out there in the hallway warming up with the Sense Arena. But I'm looking forward to the day that we see more and more kids actually out there, instead of just juggling balls or bouncing them against the wall, facing some real shots before they hit the ice. Because especially if you're a minor hockey goaltender, this just makes so much sense. I mean, or beer league, where you get that 3-minute warm up, that 5-minute warm up. It's not a good 15, 20 minutes like you get at higher levels of hockey. So I think it's an invaluable tool, and people really need to give it a shot, see what it's like, and see how it impacts your game. And we're very thankful that Sense Arena has been along for the ride here at the InGoal Radio podcast for so long, and that they help bring all these great interviews to our listeners.
Two things that I didn't realize was going to happen in the drills. One, there's one set of drills where there's behind the net play. Right. And they can reverse it out the near side, or they can take it all the way behind that. But you got to do that post and shuffle over and experience that. And the other one is real video of players. There's some where it's computer generated and the puck comes off the bot or whatever you want to call it. But then there's a number of drills where it's actual players coming down and shooting on you, and that's where you get that opportunity to learn how to read releases.
Yeah, and there are those real players that you're seeing on video are actually related to the level of your play. If you're a younger goaltender, you're facing younger players in those video drills. Whereas if you were to set up your profile so that you're an older goaltender, a pro even, then you're facing, I think, out of the some of the Euro Pro leagues, the videos are of those players. So you get that opportunity to see what you'll be seeing in a game, or maybe see a little bit above what you'd like to see. I think it's an incredible opportunity.
Great stuff, and I'll be trying it out. I'm gonna get one more shot at it and see if I can crack the top 40. Woody, I just haven't seen your name out there because you've been too busy talking to people. And this week, speaking with the director of goaltending, our good pal Jordan.
Yeah, this last month of the InGoal Radio podcast is brought to you by the Calgary Flames. Nice little treat here. Both the Flames in town. Had a chance to catch up with Jason LaBarbera a little bit at the game, just informally on Thursday night. We talked about that game between Demko and Markstrom and a lot of the goalie parts of it. But also the Calgary Flames affiliate was back in town in Abbotsford this weekend. So out to watch Dustin Wolf, which is always a treat as a goaltender, just to watch him play. Like it's kind of like a how-to video out there. Really fun to watch. But a chance also to catch up with Jordan Sigalet. And as much as we had Wolf and Spear on just a few weeks ago, Jordan's a guy who's, part of blazing a trail right now in the National Hockey League as teams start to add, more depth to their goaltending departments. The concept of a director, clearly things going well for the Calgary Flames. And so the chance to talk to him about not just how some of his goalies are doing in the organization, but how that role has sort of shaped itself, how it day-to-day, week-to-week basis, how they operate to make sure everyone's on the same page. And is this a model that other teams need to follow around the National Hockey League? So had a fun 25 minutes with Jordan, and we kind of touched on a lot of different things that'll be interesting to a lot of different people, I think.
The feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR on InGoal Radio, the podcast. Kevin Woodley with the director of goaltending for the Calgary Flames, Jordan Sigalet.
Really happy to welcome back to the InGoal Radio podcast. Third appearance in what has unofficially become Calgary Flames goalie. I don't know if it's month because this will run in March early, but we've had a lot of Calgary Flames on the InGoal Radio podcast lately. But pleased to welcome back the director of goaltending, Jordan Sigalet. Siggy, good to have you back here. I didn't realize, and maybe you didn't realize, that you would have to be back in Abbotsford as often and dealing with me now that in the new role now that we've got an AHL team back here.
Hey, I can't hide now. It's nice being back here, though. Coaching here. Started my coaching career here after Everett for 3 years with the Abbotsford Heat. So kind of special to be back, and it's an easy trip out from Calgary.
It does have that benefit. A little easier to get here than Stockton. Does it bring back some memories? Because this is kind of where you and I actually first met, and I remember coming out here and watching Danny Taylor, Leyland Irving, that crew.
Barry Brust.
Barry Brust, they're one of the absolute legends of the position. Bring back some memories being out here?
Yeah, it brings back some good memories. That's where I started, and as a pro goalie coach, and worked my way up to be in Calgary. So it's always fun being back, and family's here. So it's an awesome spot to be.
Now, when you look back at those early years as a goalie coach in the evolution to now, this is actually a big question. If you could go back to talk to that guy as he started out, what advice now after all these years later and moving into a director role and having coached National Hockey League goaltenders for an extended period, anything you'd change if you look back in terms of your approach to coaching now that you've had more years at it? What advice would you give a young Jordan Sigalet just starting out as a goalie coach?
I think you just learn a lot from all the different goalies you had. And for me, when I started in Everett, Wade Flaherty was going down there, every couple of weeks because he had Kent Simpson with Chicago. So I think Wade really helped me transition to my role here in Abbotsford when I was here. And then just having the different goalies and styles I had with goalies like Barry Brust and Danny Taylor and Leyland Irving, you just learned something new from them, whether it was their preparation or their style. And so I think, I wouldn't change anything. I think all those people made me better being here and, challenged me in different ways. So you had to adjust to each different goalie and, take things from each guy that you worked with.
Is that a lesson you share with the coaches you're working with now? I mean, you got Jason LaBarbera in the National Hockey League, got Thomas Spear here. And between the two organizations, you've got quite a variety in goaltending with Jacob Markstrom, more established, but still evolving. Dustin Wolf is a first-year pro, just obviously clearly a different stature goaltender, a different style of goaltender. Is that a lesson you sort of preach with those guys? And how much of it is groupthink when you guys get together and chat about the position and the guys you're working with?
Yeah, it's a lot of group discussion. We collaborate on a lot of different things, and we all talk on a daily basis. But for sure, with Thomas having a guy like Adam Werner versus Dustin Wolf, totally different style goalies, and obviously in size, stature too. And then I think it's great for Jason to have a young guy in Dan Vladar. You can already see a lot of Markstrom's game, rubbing off, playing similar situations the same. And, he's just a young sponge that, is willing to mold and learn. And, you can see that from the start of the year until now already.
Benefit then, those guys both being sort of similar stature, like not that Dustin's going to be up there next week or anything, just his first year pro, but it would be different if you had Dustin with Markstrom right now. Is there a benefit to sort of having a guy like Vladar almost mirroring Markstrom a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, they're almost the exact same size, and you can just see the structure that's been added by Jason to Dan's game, and, just to have a guy like Markstrom for him to look up to, and watch him daily in practice. Like, I don't think I've seen a more competitive guy in practice than Jacob. So, that's definitely rubbing off on Dan, and, it's really exciting to see.
Is it important to have that type of mentorship? Even like Dan's been around. He was in Boston. There were other guys in that organization. Even when he wasn't with the Bruins, like to be at a training camp with a Tuca, but to be in the day in, day out with a guy like Markstrom, like, is mentorship important as guys move up the ladder?
Yeah, it's huge. And you don't just see it on the ice with Dan, but to be around Jacob on a daily basis off the ice, in the gym. You can see it just in his, press conferences. He's taking ownership when he has a bad game or a bad loss, which is what Jacob does, and puts it on his shoulders. And so it's nice to see him maturing that way too.
It's funny, I asked Daryl that question the other day about goalies as leaders, because we knew here in Vancouver that Jacob was that was the cloth he was cut from. Like, he led by example. I wasn't sure what to expect in the answer, but he quickly went back to comparing him to Ed Belfour and Jonathan Quick. And what do you see as leadership from a goaltender? Like, the idea of throwing a C on them didn't work here in Vancouver, might not be a great idea, but does everybody have to do it? Or are different guys sort of built different? Can you be a vocal leader even as a goalie? How's Markstrom leadership rubbed off even beyond Vladar in that room?
Oh, you see his leadership firsthand, just on the ice with his compete, with his details, his habits. he hates getting scored on, even if it's, a 3-on-0 drill. He never has an excuse, and I think that's huge for a leader as a goalie. He's not blaming it on, being screened or, going off his own player and in the net. He owns up to everything and knows he can be better every day, and, hates giving up goals, whether it's practice or in the game, and that rubs off on your team and makes them want to battle for you and play hard for you, and it's rubbed off on Vladar too.
We've seen an evolution, of the position itself. We've seen an evolution in Jacob's game. He was a goalie that for the longest time was sort of branded as the next, I think the phrase that we always used to hear was the best goalie not in the NHL. And then it took him a while to get to the NHL, and there was a maturity process that played out in there. There was an evolution on the ice. We saw him make significant changes under Ian Clark a couple of years here in Vancouver. It looks like he's continued to evolve there as well. Some changes in his game is if you want to get into him, great, but if not, is that just a sign that, because he had some great years here, and yet it's still a continuous process. There is no sort of, you get to this point and you're done. The position always evolves. The goaltenders always evolve.
Yeah, that's what's impressive about Jacob. I remember when we signed him, I called him right away, and he said to me, he goes, I haven't reached my ceiling yet. There's still room for growth. He's like, I know I can get better. And like, for me to hear that was obviously pretty exciting. That was before I switched my role and was planning on working with him. But, he's been the same with Jason LaBarbera, and, just little adjustments in his game, whether it's his stance or tracking pucks, quieting his feet down. He's made a lot of little adjustments and continues to get better. And I think he's still got room to grow.
What's that process like? As you said, when Jacob signed with you were still the Calgary Flames goalie coach, and it was just right after that, as that next season started, obviously the late start in January, Barbs comes out of the World Juniors and he takes over that role and you move to director. So I know you've kind of done this in wearing different hats, but what kind of approach do you take, whether it's Markstrom signing as a free agent or a new goalie that you've just drafted? How do you go about building that relationship and understanding what makes them tick and what they think is important to them? And then maybe as you grow together, transitioning to inserting some ideas that might need to change or some philosophies that might need to adjust sort of with the Flames.
I think I've become a pro at building relationships with goalies because I've had new ones almost every year, and it's not easy. And like even Jason went through it last year. It almost takes half a season just to get a guy's trust, and it's really hard making some of those changes in season. So I was lucky the one year when we signed Cam Talbot to be able to go down to Ontario, just outside of Hamilton, to meet his goalie coach, work with his goalie coach a little bit, get on the same page. And I think that goes a huge distance, having that relationship with a guy's summer goalie coach, because that's the time to hammer away on some details. And I know Jason did that this summer with Jacob Markstrom, and you make too many big significant changes mid-season, and those guys are starting to overthink a little bit, and if they have failure trying to make those changes, then it comes back on you as a goalie coach. So there's a fine line there in season, and so I think having that relationship with the goalie coaches in the summers goes a long way, and obviously building trust with your goalie as quick as you can when you get a new goalie is something that's huge.
What we've seen sometimes guys can get pulled in different directions, especially at the, coming out of, say, junior or college or whatever. You can have a coach you work with in the summer, a guy in college or a guy in junior, maybe another guy locally by that team. Like you can end up, some of these kids, maybe they make a national program, there's another voice, and then they get drafted. There's a guy at the development level, there's a guy at the NHL level, there's now you in a director role. How do you get everyone? I know it's probably easier within your own organization, but how do you make sure everyone's on the same page, especially before they arrive to you? Say they're still in college for a year or two, or still in junior for a year or two after you draft them. Obviously, going and seeing the goalie coaches is important, but how do you approach that relationship, not just with the goalie, but with those coaches?
Yeah, it's just communication, and it's, trying to get on the same page. And if you can't, finding a happy medium. For example, we have a goalie in Tri-City in the USHL, Arseny Sergeyev, and he's in the USHL now, and has Matt Zaba, who's a very good goalie coach there. So, I speak to him weekly. And then he's going to UConn the following year, which Vincent Stiletti is the goalie coach there. So I'm already talking to Vincent, preparing him for when he does get there. And, they're both great goalie coaches, and, beliefs are pretty much the same, but you want to make sure everyone is on the same page so the kid isn't getting different voices and different messages, and me telling them one thing and them telling them another. So, it's just communication and, staying open-minded and open to new ideas and, just targeting where you think his development needs to go, but making sure he's getting pushed in the right direction.
Do some of the key points change? Like, are there things that you would teach or that they maybe, I don't want to say get away with, but are things that maybe at the college level where they don't need to worry about that, but that at the pro level it might not translate? And do you have to be cognizant of, maybe not pulling them away from something that's working at a lower level, even though down the road it might need to change? I know it's kind of a general question. There are sort of different requirements of a goaltender at different levels and in different leagues.
There are, and I think you need to attack those areas earlier than, wait. Like there's some things in our seniors game that, we want to take care of now, so we're not worrying about it when he does become a pro in, 3, 4, 5 years. And I think the quicker you can, work on those details and have him, play more of a pro style game, he's going to have an easier transition going to college than playing the pro game.
We used to see goalie coaches, not everyone, but for the longest time, it could become quite an insular position at the NHL. You didn't get out. You didn't talk to people. There were some organizations where the goalie coach isn't allowed to talk to media, for example. I mean, I have to live that. But I'm wondering, it sounds like in this role, you're talking to everyone. And as the position evolves, to have different ideas, to have that openness and to have that philosophy, it must be is it kind of like a constant education? To be able to have all these different ideas flowing from different places. You got goalies from different countries. You got coaches from different regions, different backgrounds. Must be almost like you're building a little encyclopedia of goaltending in these conversations.
Yeah, no, it's refreshing. Guys are way more open now than they were a few years ago. And there's still the odd goalie coach out there that doesn't like to share and, talk about, what their key points are and their development and, working with their guys. But, look around on social media now, how many people are sharing ideas and networking. And, another example would just be the conferences we went to with the
network conferences.
The network goaltending conferences, just sharing ideas and not being stubborn and thinking you know everything. Go there, you might pick up, one thing, you might pick up 10 things, but, it goes a long way for coaches with their confidence. And, it's great for the goalies too, because they're, it's not getting stale. They're getting new ideas and new thoughts thrown their way too.
I was going to say, I remember seeing at you those conferences. So I know you were a guy that actively sort of went out and looked for new ideas and was always willing to share as a presenter at those conferences. But I also know there were some organizations where the goalie coach wasn't allowed to go. So it just seems to me that staying in a position that evolves so much, staying open-minded like that can be a real benefit, not just to the individual goalie coaches, but to entire organizations, because you're constantly sort of bouncing these new ideas around.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever stop learning in this position, and even if it's something for the mental side of the game or off ice training, there's always little advantages things you can use to make your goalies better.
So, give me an idea what the week is like. You mentioned you guys talk on a regular basis, almost daily basis with amongst the different coaches. Is part of it managing those conversations? Are you looking at specifics, doing a lot of video? How does and I know you're here on the ice with Thomas, working with the goaltenders here, Dustin Wolf, Adam Werner, and I believe Andrew Shortridge out there as well today. What's a week look like? What is a typical, how often are you out and about doing this? How often are you scouting? How do you balance that?
Yeah, every week's kind of different. It's been nice, though. You can kind of make your own schedule. I've been out a second time to Abbotsford now to see these guys, and it's just nice to be around, show them some love, and let them know you're there for them and support for them, and Thomas as well. And kind of become a sounding board for both Thomas and Jason, where, if I look back at it now, I would have loved to have someone in my role when I was coaching. You're kind of on an island as a goalie coach, and everyone's blaming the goalie and you have no one to talk to about it. So you become a little bit of a sounding board and bounce ideas off each other. And whether it's, how to get a guy back on track when he's in a bit of a funk, or, Jason sending me clips of something his goalies are doing and getting my advice on it. It's just nice to have that little network of the three of us, and a lot of venting going on. But no, it's fun, and it's fun to be there to support those guys. But I just try and get around to see our prospects. I was just in Kansas City to see Danil Chechelev, which is one of our prospects. And then, usually after practice and before games, I'll be doing video to target guys for the draft or free agency, or you're watching, AHL prospects like I was with Dan Vladar, trying to find that next guy that's ready to pop and become an NHL goalie that maybe an organization no longer has a fit for because they have too much depth. So you're always watching video and talking to your scouts to see if they've seen guys around the league that you should target for the NHL draft, and you're always trying to find that diamond in the rough that no one knows about too.
Or you've got a track record of finding those from David Rittich, guys that maybe weren't on the radar elsewhere. You've done a really good job of finding those guys. Dustin Wolf all the way to the 7th round before you guys got in there and having success right away. What do you look for without giving the secret sauce away? Like, is it a bit of everything? Do you need to see it live? Is video enough? Is it about the person beyond just the goalie? What kind of things allow you to sort of find these guys?
Yeah, it's not really one specific thing. And the nice part is I found that watching a goalie on video versus live, I can still get a pretty good feel on video. I think it'd be a lot harder if you're watching a player's. It's hard to pick out where he is and, what he's doing all the time. But, on video, you're getting replays of saves, replays of goals. But, you're looking for a guy that's a good skater. He's competitive, the things you can't teach, because I think you can always add structure to a guy's game. And, that's what we saw in Sergeyev when he was in the North American Hockey League. Just a big, powerful guy that's super competitive, a good skater, but just lacked structure. He was a bit all over the place, but, all the tools were there. So if you get a guy like that and you can, add a game plan to his game, and I think there's a lot of upside in guys like that.
As opposed to, say, a guy who is polished and looks great and is having success, but there might not be as much upside beyond there. Is that like, guys, is it tough sometimes? Because we've seen guys come through the draft where it's like people maybe see like this is his ceiling and they worry that there's no more upside. And there's times where I hear that mentality and I'm like, yeah, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like even if the ceiling, even if he's almost at it, it's pretty damn good right now. Like,
Yeah,
how do you,
if you take
have
a
to
guy
balance that?
you take a guy like Spencer Knight and Dustin Wolf, like two super polished guys, but they're really good. So as long as mentally they're tough and they keep working at their game and getting bigger and stronger, those kids have upside too. But something about just those guys with the raw athleticism that just need some coaching and structure to their game. Those are the ones that are exciting too.
Well, I'm excited to have Abbotsford, back in the league, not just because it's nearby so I get to come bug you, but also because I get to come watch guys like Dustin Wolf. Last time you guys were here, there were a couple of drills that had my eyes popping out of my sockets, had everyone banging their sticks on the ice. Like what, we had Thomas and we had Dustin talking about his evolution as a first-year pro, but like, can you put into words what makes this kid so special at such a young age? What's allowing him to have success? Because I've heard it like, for over a decade now. That jump from junior to the AHL is usually a lot bigger than the next one. And he's made it somewhat seamlessly, at least watching him.
His focus is just like insane. Like the kid, nothing phases the kid. His work ethic is through the roof. I think one of the best things that happened to him was him dropping to the 7th round, because that's really lit a fire under him. He wants to prove everyone wrong. He wants to prove that all these people that say he's too small to play in the NHL, like that's lighting fires under him. And, it's impressive. If he does have a bad game, which has been rare, it's behind him the minute it's over, and, wants to bounce back and win the next one. So he's ultra competitive, he's athletic. The only knock on him is size, and he's proven people wrong that, like UC Saros, that a small goalie can have success at the pro level.
Last one. Advice. I asked you what you would tell a young Jordan Sigalet just starting out. What about for other goalie coaches? Because there are a lot of, young goalie coaches around that, how do I get into pro? How do I make that jump? I don't know that there's one answer, but what advice would you give all those goalie coaches out there that sort of look at Abbotsford or Stockton or the American Hockey League or even the ECHL as the point they want to get to as a starting point? Or you started as well in the Canadian Hockey League with Everett. Looking back, knowing what you know now of the structure, what would be the advice you'd give to those goalie coaches?
Well, the big thing, which we already talked about, is to network 100%. Email different clubs and ask if you can come out and come on the ice during a practice, which I know Joey Ali did here, last week in Abbotsford. It's huge for networking, for experience, for making those connections. And on top of that, just keep grinding. You got to work at the game. You got to continue to get better yourself. You can't be stubborn and think you know it all. I think there's a lot of guys out there that overcoach, which, you know, can have a negative effect on your goalies as well. And there's just a fine line and balance between, you know, coaching and when do you let a guy, you know, just play a little bit and work through his struggles on his own. But no, I think just networking and, you know, working hard at the craft and continuing to try and get better is a huge, huge thing.
And I do have one more, because I always have one more. Where do you see this, like the position, the director position? We've seen a few of them. Few teams embrace this idea. Obviously, it's had a lot of positives for your organization. Like goaltending is a strength. It has been for a while, but like you see, when I hear and I see the way things are going and the communication between you guys, like, is this just where everyone's going to get to? Do you hope everyone gets to this, or do you hope it stays an advantage for you guys because nobody else has it?
I hope no one else does it, because I thought it was going to be great, and then being in the role, you realize how important it is. You know, because if you're Thomas and you're coaching the AHL, if you're Jason in the NHL, like it's so hard to be watching video for the draft and free agency and, you know, giving all your other prospects love. Like they sometimes get forgotten about because you're so focused on your AHL guys and your NHL guys, and they need your attention full time. So, you know, for me to bounce around and see those guys we've drafted or signed and, you know, focusing way more just on the draft and free agency, you know, you're all in on it. You know, it's part of it's hard because you feel like you're covering the world when it comes to the draft and the free agency, and, you know, moving forward, we'd probably like to get a couple like goalie specific scouts, you know, on board too. I think that will be huge for the organization, and, you know, it takes a little bit off my plate, but I think it's just such a huge position, and I think teams are crazy if they don't create it in their organization.
The most important position requires more positions keeping an eye on it. It seems to make sense to me, and yet that's not always been the way it goes in the National Hockey League. So good on the Flames, and good on you guys for making it work this well.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome.
Siggy, thanks a lot for the time, man. Like I said, the good thing is you get to come to Abbotsford, and you don't have to go to Stockton every time to see these guys. The bad news is I always meet you here, so
yeah, it's
I
a little
appreciate
warmer in
seeing
Stockton
you.
right now too. So
That's true too. All right, man. Well, it's good to catch up.
thank you.
I love the idea. What they've done in Calgary with Jordan and that goaltending department. Just it's like Woody being able to just bounce things off of his interview subjects, but they do it daily with their goaltending department.
Such a great point, Darren. Not comparing it to me, but
No.
goalie coaches, as Siggy said, like they were on an island for so long, and having other guys in the organization and somebody sort of heading it up and coordinating that communication. Like I'm watching them. Like I watched Thomas Spear do some drills the other day, and Jordan was out there filming it because I know they're going to share that stuff. Like it goes top to bottom, and it goes the other way too. Like there's a lot of communication. Like, hey, we tried this. Maybe have you tried looking at that? Like I just think it's invaluable, because I've seen how some goalie coaches can end up in a bubble where the only people they talk to are their own coaching staffs, not other goalie coaches. Like in some organizations, they're not allowed to go out and talk to people. And Siggy talked about that. Like even before they had this, I would see him at the network goaltending symposiums, right? Trying to meet other goalie coaches, hear other ideas, presenting at those symposiums, sharing his ideas, sharing their results, because everybody's better for it. I think as much as we try and there is an element of protecting your own interests in what you do, and I understand that. If you put yourself in too big of a bubble and too big an island, you lose the chance to be exposed to other people who might be able to help you get better or look at something from a perspective you would never look at it yourself.
I think if you're insular and you only focus on your own program and you hold all those secrets to yourself, eventually everybody else out there is going to act a little bit more like Jordan and the Calgary organization and understand that collaboration, you know, the old line, a rising tide floats all boats, and the rest of the league is going to start passing you by, and they're going to work together and find new things that they can do so that the insular people will be left behind, whatever industry you're in. Collaboration is the key to growth, I think. And it's great that not only are they doing that as an organization, but really, guys, they've been super open about sharing those things with us and with the InGoal readers as well. And I'm
Like the
thankful
Panda.
to them for that.
The Panda.
Yep, the Panda. And we've heard from other coaches that have talked to and reached out to them about how they're implementing it, and they've been open about that. We've got some more stuff that we'll have with Dustin and with some of the other goalies that were out there this week. We saw Adam Werner out there this week again. We've got a thing on his very unique stick handle coming up, like how he does the paddle or the handle at the top of the paddle of his stick. They had Andrew Shortridge out there this week working. That's another thing that they do. They've got 2 prospects in the ECHL, but and they do get down there to see them. And they're lucky they've got a goalie coach with their ECHL affiliate, not affiliated with them, but working for their ECHL affiliate in Kansas City, Josh Robinson, who's another guy that's submitted to us and worked with us, and just a great open guy who likes to share. So, but they're also alternating those guys, right? So they've got 2 guys in the ECHL, but only one at a time. Like one of their prospects is down there and the other one is up as a third goalie with the Heat, and they rotate back and forth. So when they're traveling, they have 3 goalies. They don't need to worry about e-bug situations for the Stockton Heat, but they've also got that third goalie working with Thomas Spear. And when Jordan Sigalet visits, he's out there with Andrew Shortridge and Adam Werner and Dustin Wolf after skate doing goalie stuff. So it just feels like the right way to go, to have more voices and more options to help all your prospects. I just love the way they're handling everything in Calgary right now.
On the subject of voices, what's happening over at InGoal? Hutch.
Lots of stuff at InGoal. We've been on a really good run here for the last couple of weeks, and we've started to put out a weekly. I mean, we've always sent a weekly newsletter to our members just to let them know what's up on the site. We're now sharing that with a wider audience as well. So do look for that on social or in your email. Get a chance to see what's up every week. I just want to, it's been a while. We just want to give a little love to our friend Pete Fry, who has started to contribute a little bit more regularly over at InGoal of late. I think the last 3 weeks we've had something up from Pete. This week, there's a piece on having that never give up mentality. And that might to you just seem like, well, of course you should never give up. But I think the idea is that you need to go into situations prepared for how you're going to handle them. And Pete's always big about having a plan. And I think you need to understand that things happen. Things happen that we're not happy about, that don't work out well for us as a goaltender in the moment. And so how is it that you're going to handle that situation so that it becomes a moment of growth rather than something that holds you back? So Pete's got an article about that this week. I encourage people to go check it out. A lot of the stuff that Pete is sharing with us is based on this 30-day program that he's put together called the Goalie Mindset Power Program. There's a link in the articles that everybody, whether you're a member or not a member, can get to that link right up at the top. And I encourage you just go check it out. Pete's a guy who we felt strongly about for many years since we've gotten to know him and gotten to work with him. And one of the things I love about what he does is he's also got that group that meets several times a week, young goaltenders, older goaltenders. You can hop in there and they just do some of this mental training together, whether it's these concentration grids or Pete will bring a speaker in to talk to the group or all sorts of different things. And I remember when we first hit the old COVID thing and kids were shut in at home with nothing they could really do. I know for our son, that group became a really important thing where every day he had something to look forward to. And quite often you'd have a pro goaltender dropping in to train along with everybody else, just like one of the guys. So thanks to Pete for everything he's doing, helping goaltenders prepare mentally to become better at their craft. Because as we often say, it's so much of the mental skills are what really matter for goaltenders. What else have we got going on over there, Woody?
Well, part 2, I talked about already, the Ian Clark Thatcher Demko series. Make sure you keep an eye out for part 3 this week, because that's when it gets real fun, including a conversation about some of the things that Dominic Hasek did so well and why, and how that translates to a desperation moment that you can actually prepare and plan for. Like I said, even in desperation moments, sometimes it's all instinct and you need to have that. But there are other times when having a plan or at least a foundation improves your odds in those moments. And Ian Clark and Thatcher Demko share one of those. It's upcoming in part 3 this week. We'll have another pro reads this week. I think I'm going to fire up. I'm trying to remember what I had in the queue for this week.
Well, you had a brand new one last week that we haven't even talked about on here.
Right.
Before.
Joseph Wall had one, a new guest on Pro Reads. And if you heard him on the podcast last week and how well thought out he is, you knew. And he talked a lot about how his development was about reading the game. He shares some of those reads, starting with a 3-on-1 this last week. That's up at ingoalmag.com. I think next week we'll probably go to a Braden Holtby read. We've got lots more coming up there. You talked about Pete Fry. We might do a little article on Dark Gear and Thatcher Demko after this conversation we had today. Feels like that's something that needs to be followed up, almost just as an excuse to show off that sick gear he had this week. So maybe we'll have to throw one of those up there this week as well. But as always, there are literally hundreds of articles for annual subscribers. Full access to the archives when you subscribe annually to ingoalmag.com. That includes, we got to be up over 120 pro reads now. Tons of pro drills, pro tips. We had an article with Renee Desbiens that's up online right now about how to manage practice time. We all know those 3-on-0 drills. She talked about hating those 3-on-0 drills, but how her ability to find ways to use those to get better helped her become an Olympic gold medal champion. That article is up right now at ingoalmag.com as well.
Who's the goalie that just turned around and knocked the net off on the 3-on-0?
David Leggio.
Yes. On the podcast, yeah. Twice, right?
Yes. That is always the go-to move for me. It's tough to do in practice because the coach gets mad because the net's always in the corner. but during a game, give it a shot. What they changed the rules
on him?
And what did it go to? A penalty shot?
No, well, it was a penalty shot, right? So the situation was he was facing a 2-on-0, and he very intelligently decided I'd rather face one guy on a penalty shot than two guys on this scenario. So he knocked the net off, thereby resulting in a penalty shot. And as I recall, made the save as well. You better come up with the save after that move. But then they changed the rule, so now it's just an automatic goal if you do that.
Now I might have to test that one of these days to see if that's trickled down to Beer League, whether they abide by the same rules.
I think they should have just been more creative. Rather than going with the automatic goal, it should have been a two-man penalty shot.
Oh, that would be good. That would be really good.
And then we'll have coaches wasting 15 minutes of every practice with 2-on-0 penalty shot drills instead of just the 2-on-0 flow drills that we're all subjected to. And Renee Desbiens told us how to handle those. But let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I'm going to dedicate this one to Aiden Shaw, who we started the podcast with the shout out. If somebody covers the puck in the crease, the team can pick a player to take the penalty shot, right?
Yep.
Right. Somebody on the ice, right?
Right. So you can't put in another goalie for that penalty shot, though. Can't substitute because the player's on the ice.
I think so.
I wouldn't think so either.
Just
thinking out loud. Ooh, yeah. Got a bad hip just for a second.
That's like throwing the net off. I'd just fake an injury to get out of there.
Aiden, enjoy your trip to the hockey shop. Source for Sports Story, thehockeyshop.com, and let us know. Fire over an email, and maybe, just maybe, if Woody's in the area, he can stop by for a visit. Also, thanks to Jordan Sigalet for popping on with us again and providing his insight and just sharing with us and not keeping it all bottled up. And Cam, a little soap and water, and we squeeze in the gear segment, and it becomes much easier. Appreciate it. Aiden and everybody else, let us know how your journey's going by a little correspondence, either on Twitter or fire us an email. And we'll talk to you next week on InGoal Radio, the podcast.